I'm a fan of fantasy, so I listen to Easy and Alan on their Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. During the show, you can live chat with Easy and Alan at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. Rumour has it, Lenny only swings one way. Launch angle. Now here's Easy and Chris Allen.
And yes, we are here on the first Wednesday of a new year, 2019, on the Legend Sports Network. I'm your host, Easy Kill. My co-host on the other side of the screen, Mr. Chris Allen. Chris, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing better than Marvin Lewis, maybe right at the moment. And we'll get into a little coach speak here in a little bit. Tonight, broad topics are what we're talking about because, the holidays are ending. I was on vacation, had to go back to work today. It's hard to get a lot of things done in one day, but we'll go over a few things. But first of all, Happy New Year to you and your family. Obviously, you made it through the new year. Did you have a good time?
We kept it low key at the house. Our two younger sons, we put them to bed around 9:30. The rest of us, we just stayed up and we were just watching movies and hanging out, watched the ball drop, and then went to bed shortly thereafter. So it was a chill evening in the house. So
well, that's good. My son had shoulder surgery on Friday morning.
There you go.
So I was messing with him all weekend, and on New Year's, he finally convinced me he could get out of the house. He went to somebody's party, but he called me just a little before midnight. Said, "Can you just come get me now? My back," he was starting to feel a little yucky. So I was in a parking lot somewhere at midnight by myself. Nothing too exciting, but but same thing. I mean, I've had a few more than you. My kids are older, so I stayed up and I binged all week on in and out travel and stuff like that. But binged on what's the big HBO series? No, I can't even.
Game of Thrones?
Game of Thrones. Are you a Game of Thrones person?
Nope, haven't watched an episode.
Okay, and maybe we already talked about this. Seems like no one has, other than it's like the most popular show ever, they say. And now I'm watching it whenever I talk to anyone. Everyone goes, "I've never seen that." So
I've been told I need to read the books. I'll at least do that.
Okay. Now, that being said, and I don't even know if it counts, Audible, I just bought the book, the first one. I thought, well, I'm going to listen to the Audible of the book.
Okay.
Because some of those are entertaining. I know some people say that's not the same as reading, but sitting down and reading that big a book, where at work I can listen to it now. Football's over. I got a little time to kill. I thought, well, I'm going to try one of the books and see how it goes and everything. We're on a time deadline. There is a show now after us at 11, so they're putting constraints on us. Just got done listening to Brian earlier. He's one of the new podcasters again, doing the baseball show just before us. They're doing a good job. A lot of things are changing here in the next few weeks, getting ready for baseball at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. Chris, I know you're not the baseball guy, but we'll be doing a little football talk mixed in here, doing a lot of fantasy talk, and some of it will fit right in with what, you would be doing even for baseball, but,
sure.
Getting ready and all that. But my first thing I just want to bring up, because I know they talked about a lot on the website, JD Works today. Are you interested at all in college football?
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
you can, the bowl games, I know we've talked about it in the past, but to me, none of them mean a damn thing anymore, except for three: the two semifinals and the finals. All the rest are, the players just aren't there. A lot of players are not participating. There's coaches that have left jobs already, so for all today I heard all these people go, Notre Dame was by bad. Now, Notre Dame was in a game that mattered. And yes,
sure.
they did struggle because their competition, I think I agreed with a few people, their competition all season in name value, they always have a tough schedule.
Sure.
They play a lot of top schools, but this year they didn't have that super tough, schedule like they've had in the past. So I'm not sure they were prepared for what hit them, but
it seemed like it. It definitely seemed like it.
But other than that, even the Buckeyes, I'm a Buckeyes fan, and they won, and they seem to come out and want to play. But I still put no weight on the victory. I just, again, if you're not in those three majors, which are the two semis and the finals, it hasn't happened yet. I mean, do we need to change it to make it matter? Or should we be happy that the regular season matters so much that these one day of bowl games or this month of bowl games now? I remember the days where January 1, bowl games started at 11 o'clock and went all day on multiple channels. And even, this year you just have 2 or 3 games on the first anymore. But I don't know. Are you happy with what we have in college? Meaning, I understand and I love it that every game matters. If being a Buckeyes fan, and I'm sure any major college football fan knows, you can't lose one game anymore. So every game matters. Are we willing to accept that and put up with this bowl crap that we have? And I mean that literally. The bowl stuff is crap to me. Or do we need to fix it? And if you fix it too much, do you run the risk of that happening where you take the emphasis off every game and put more emphasis on that tournament at the end?
I think that there should be a little bit more emphasis on the tournament towards the end, so that I think teams will have a little bit more to play of in terms of playoff seeding. So I think they should at the very least have some more teams into the final playoffs. So expand it from the 4. I've heard talk about going from 4 to 8. I like that idea because I do think that it allows for 1, more conference representation, and then 2, you get more talent coming in. So a lot of the players that come from even some of the top ranked schools that wound up not getting in, some of their players might have a little bit more incentive to actually, show up for their final bowl games if they wind up getting into the tournament. So I think just at the very least, I think a simple fix would be just increase the number of teams that get into the final playoff.
All right, but even then, we know now. I mean, obviously, if you're in the top 8, you could have lost a game. So, again, it doesn't make every game as important as it does right now. I don't know. I just love every Saturday knowing that I got to watch the Buckeyes. I mean, even if they're playing Ohio University or they're playing Eastern Michigan, you got to watch because the Buckeyes can't afford to lose one game. And I realize maybe that's special because the Buckeyes are one of those teams that can't afford to lose. But I don't know. I don't know. I just found it I watched the 2 semifinals, and then other than the Buckeyes, and even then I faded in and out a little bit. I don't know. I struggle.
It almost seems kind of sad because in a lot of the games that people are really paying attention to now, they're only paying attention to like specific players. I mean, that's all people are. But that's
some of them
zeroing in on.
But some of them aren't playing, and then even some of them you can't evaluate because the other team's defensive guy isn't playing. I mean, there was a couple teams where 3 of their top linemen weren't playing. And unless you're into it enough to pay attention and to listen and know that, I get it. The average fan just turns it on and they want to see
football.
They just see Georgia versus Houston, or whatever, and that's it. And they don't realize that, okay, one of the teams doesn't have all their players because this game doesn't matter at all. And I'm not going to say as much as they're playing it like a Pro Bowl, like they're not playing as hard. But man, no senior wants to get hurt in a bowl game that doesn't matter.
No.
So it does make it hard to evaluate. I would not use a bowl game to evaluate.
No, and I don't think that you should.
Unless it's in those 3 major bowls, which are the main.
I know a lot of people like to draw narratives around high pressure situations and things like that. Like, let's say if it had been 2 years ago and Deshaun Watson wound up losing the title game. I don't know what the narratives might have been around him shortly thereafter. I don't know if it would have affected his draft stock. But I think a lot of people try and spin narratives around the current climate and how players play, like in those 1-game samples and those big games right there. So for Tua, when he declares and he's coming out and whatnot, if they wind up losing, if he doesn't look as great, all those narratives will then be drawn about him in the same way that we did about Watson, 2 years prior.
Right. If Bosa doesn't get hurt, are the Buckeyes in one of the top in those last 2 games, or would they probably lost a?
I think so. I think he's enough of an impact.
I think even if they'd have lost to Purdue, the impact of him being in the game and being in a lot of draft boards, the number 1 take, that maybe the Buckeyes get a little bump. Maybe they don't make it to number 4, but obviously they do look at that, as far as who's going to be involved and all that. So,
right.
I don't know. I just realized now that they've taken that away. That bowl experience is different. I'm not saying good or bad. For me, it's just not the same. I don't get into them. I just realized to me they're practice games. And I think it's good for college football that a lot of those teams get to keep practicing, and it really helps them for the next year and maybe a little recruiting. But to sit here and analyze it today, any of the games that weren't those final, the two semifinals, I think you're just making, I'm not saying you're making up you're not making up things, but it's not important.
It's really not. I mean, because nobody,
Michigan, blah blah blah. I think, especially in the Big Ten. I've always said even with the Buckeyes, once the Big Ten I want my Buckeyes to win the Big Ten championship every year. After that, I'll just be happy. Because after that, even bowl games. But when there wasn't even this tournament, I always said, the Big Ten gets screwed because there's no bowl games in the Big Ten. In our Big Ten states, we're going to everybody else's hometown. We're going to everybody else's warm weather. We're taking our 350-pound linemen that were brought to these Big Ten states to play in snow and cold weather, and we're taking them down to Florida and Texas and Arizona and California to play in warm weather against these SEC teams that get 320-pound linemen because they need to be quick and don't have to worry about that. So I've always said, even in the years where there was no championship thing, and you still want the Buckeyes to win a bowl game, so maybe they get voted as champion or whatever, but we got screwed every year having to play in California. If we went to a Rose Bowl, we had to play in California, on their home turf, So to me, that's not an equal setting anyway, Win the Big Ten championship, put a banner up, and everything else after that is cherry on the cherry on the pie, cherry on the cake. I don't even know what you would say. I mean, icing on the cake, cherry on the sundae, cherry on the sundae.
There you go. Yeah.
And I was going to talk. Lou did just put in here because I was going to ask Lou. I said I was tied up. They didn't get in the chat room. Lou is saying there is a playoff league. For Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports out there. He did put a link in the chat room right now and all that. Lou, I'm in the middle of a show, but keep me a spot. Don't let them all, make sure Easy gets in there. But I do have that as one of our quick fantasy things to talk about before we get into some coaching and all that. And that is these playoff fantasy leagues. Do you participate? Are they something you do or not?
Yeah, I'm actually in two different ones. I'm in the Scott Fish Playoff League. That's $10. I forget what all the prizes and whatnot, but I know a significant portion of it winds up going to Fantasy Cares. That's his charity that gets most of the toys for tots, Christmas gifts, and all that and whatnot. I forget the rules, if I'm not mistaken. It's 11 player, or no, actually no. With his, it's 5 players. 5 players set it, and then then you hold. I think you hold that for, I forget however long. I think it's for like the entire playoffs, and then whoever has the most cumulative points, I believe, at the end of the playoffs, they're the winner.
Okay, and that's what I was going to say. Those are the two most popular, maybe the only two. One is a cumulative points, and then the other one is one and done type, where you pick players, you can only use them one time, through the playoff. Do you have a preference, or do you think one requires more or less skill?
I think the one where you can only use a player once. I think I like that one better because it requires a little bit more strategy, because you do have to try and, I guess, maybe switch up your tactic and say that, well, you don't want to try and use some of the top players now. You want to get a mix in of some of the players that you might
or you want to get top players on teams that aren't as good.
Exactly.
Like I would say, I guess part of me was thinking like a Zeke Elliott. I mean, hey, hopefully the Cowboys move on, Lou. Right. I know that's what you would say, but at the same time, there's a chance they're only in one game and they lose. So you don't want to not use Zeke Elliott, if he, doesn't play more than one game. So yes, you obviously have to weigh, and
I think
there's more involved there. You have to decide who's moving forward and then who's not, and who's on that team that can be. So to me, it's a little deeper of a thought process.
Absolutely.
So I just typed in there, if Lou's still in the chat room, what format this league is. Now, he's saying this is a no limit a league where any number of people can join. So if you're listening now, go to the chat room. I'm assuming he'll post that here in the next day or two when during different shows and all that. But it is a playoff challenge. For the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports chat room and website people. So that being said, what are your playoff predictions? Or again, you know me, I don't like using the word predictions right now. What teams are you in your mind you think have the best shot at moving forward and playing in the most games? Let's go that route first.
So at least for this weekend's games, so we've got 4 games this weekend between Houston and Indianapolis. I see Indianapolis winning that particular game. Seattle, Dallas, I have Seattle. Chargers, Baltimore. I see actually Baltimore going ahead of them. Taking the win from that one. And then I see Philly over Chicago, but it's close. That's where
okay.
I'm leaning towards Philly at this point.
But in a playoff league now, the key though is this first week could be important. Meaning, if you think one of these teams playing in this first week is most likely to play in the Super Bowl, and you're playing in a total points, you want more players from these teams because you're getting an extra game, right?
Yeah, exactly. You'd want to try and pick off some of those players or get a jump on some of those players now, since they do have the wild card game, or the extra game rather.
Right. Like Jordan Allen's talking, yes, Kansas City has a shot. The Saints have a shot, but they're not playing this week. So to me, you want to, if you're doing total points, that's fine. And obviously there's players on those teams that you want to use, but you have to weigh the teams playing this week. I would think the teams playing this week that you think have the best shot at playing in the Super Bowl, like Ravens. I know they're not the greatest offense in the world, but now that I think about it, I'm not even sure that, which player I'd take off there. But at the same time,
they almost beat Kansas City in Kansas City.
Right. And then their defense is playing well, so that's a defense. But at the same time, if you have their defense, do you want a defense that's going to go against Kansas City or the Chargers? Both put up a lot of points. You have that's in the AFC. I'm just trying to think. In the NFC, it would be like the Cowboys. Do they have a shot? I mean, I think Zeke Elliott's going to go high in either type draft.
Right.
But obviously, if you think they're going all the way to the Super Bowl, he's got really big upside. Amari Cooper.
Yep.
If they're going somewhere. So, Lou Landers is saying, he says, I have 3 Saints on my team because they play in the second round. But he says in this league, you get double points if they go all the way to the Super Bowl, I think. So, I guess that kind of defeats the purpose, meaning you get double points if they make it to the Super Bowl, which would make up for the fact they didn't play in the first game. So
I've seen some leagues that do that. Yeah,
that's the format. I guess it's like we say in regular fantasy. One of the number one rules is know your rules.
Absolutely.
So obviously you want to look at this stuff. If they make the Super Bowl, he gets 4 times the points. So.
As they advance the doubles, triples, and quadruples.
I got you. See, I've never done one in football. I've done 2 in baseball, and again, both of those where you just picked as many players, out of the pool, just like regular fantasy, and you just hoped you got, players that went all the way to the World Series that played more games. So, all right. I mean, I said I'll have to get in it and play with it again. My mind of football had kind of turned off right at the moment. And I don't say that in a bad way. I say it in a good way. I kind of enjoy these next, I want to say 4 weeks, because we're talking, 4 weeks of football's left, technically, right? Am I thinking that right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
We have this week, then we have next week's, which technically, this week is wild card week, and then next week's the first round, then you have the semifinals, then you have Super Bowl. So we have 4 weeks of football.
Right. But Super Bowl's on February 3rd, if I'm not mistaken.
What I'm saying, I enjoy this time of football because now I'm no longer a fantasy person. For the next 4 weeks, I get to just watch football and not think about fantasy too much. And I kind of, I've been in the habit of turning that off and going, all right, for 4 weeks, I just get to be a football fan and really just watch the games and root and do all that. So I'm hoping that doing the fantasy part of it won't ruin that part for me. But unfortunately,
I can never switch it off for me.
Well, I mean, I'm always thinking in the back of my head, but at the same time, when you're not involved in anything, you don't have to worry about it as much.
Right. But I think this is what's going to wind up setting most of the initial market for ADP for next season, because we're going to see all these people. These are all going to be island games. Everybody's going to be watching these players.
Sure.
So when we start to evaluate talent for the 2019 season, we're going to be like, oh, do you remember what T.Y. Hilton did in the wild card round? Or do you remember, everyone's still going to love DeAndre Hopkins. He's like the 1.01 in Dynasty right now. For most folks as a wide receiver, I just think that a lot of folks are going to be looking at it with that fantasy lens on, saying that, okay, well, these players are still going to continue to do well throughout 16 games plus the playoffs. I have to have them on my roster next year because recency bias is a hell of a drug.
Right. Right. And then, like I said, and also I think gambling, obviously, when you get closer, I've never gambled on any of the first 3 rounds, but then I do multiple bets on the Super Bowl just to make it fun. And I love playing the stupid bets,
the prop bets the best.
The prop bets on the Super Bowl are hard to not. I mean, it just makes it fun.
Oh, yes.
So, and again, I'm not, me, like I said, I'm not one to pick necessarily this time of year because it's just, like I said, me guessing doesn't mean anything. But I guess my only thing would be right now, what's the biggest game you're looking for in this first round? Let's just go that route. What game are you looking forward to the most?
Seattle, Dallas. I think of all the games, I think that one's going to be the most intriguing for me to watch. But the one that I think that will probably shoot out the most, or at least has the highest potential of shooting out, is Indianapolis and Houston. At least in terms of pace of play, offensive firepower on both sides, assuming T.Y. is healthy, or at least healthy enough, because everybody's banged up at this point. Hopkins is healthy enough. But I do think that from a fantasy perspective, I think that one has the highest potential to have the most points scored. But I'm really looking forward to Seattle, Dallas.
Right. But I'll watch them all. But I would agree. Those are both, to me, the Seattle, Dallas could go either way by far. I think they're pretty equal teams. So I agree. And can anyone at this point hurt their value for fantasy? Less injury. I mean, I do agree. People have a tendency to keep memory of big events that happened, meaning they'll remember, if Zeke Elliott, let's say, I love Lou. So if the Cowboys get all the way to Super Bowl and Zeke has 280 yards in the Super Bowl, now we've already argued where he would go in round 1. But that won't hurt him, meaning if anything, that in home leagues, that's the kind of thing that gets people to maybe even move him ahead of a girl, like going, man, did you see what he did in the Super Bowl? Because people think of that last thing they saw. So I think that is a positive. So
I can definitely see, at least from a player perspective, players like most of the ancillary players like Michael Gallup, seeing how he does and actually being able to sit down and watch him finish out his rookie season. Any of the wide receivers from Philadelphia, because without Carson Wentz actually being the one actually quarterbacking for Philadelphia right now, how are we supposed to evaluate any of the pass catchers for Philadelphia minus Zach Ertz? They've got, I'm not sure if Golden Tate's still going to be there after this year, most likely not. But Nelson Aguilar, I don't know what they're going to do with him. Alshon Jeffrey, don't know what they're going to do with him. So it's going to be a lot of, that's where most of my attention is going to be at in that particular game, to just see who pops the most, because we don't know what their situation is going to be like going into the 2019 season.
Right. And Lou is saying out on the website, he's going to have a prop bet sheet and everything listed out there at Lenny Melnick, fantasysports.com. And I know Lou's a busy guy. We do have our baseball draft guide going to be out here soon. Lou has a show now following us at 11 o'clock tonight. So Lou's out there doing all kinds of, stuff. Malpal, Jordan Allen, Lou, Cha-Cha out in the chat room. Appreciate you listening to our, broad topic show tonight. So the next thing is the coaching changes. Obviously, we're in the Cincinnati area, so the big news was that Marvin Lewis is gone. I've heard both and watched both. I don't know. I think it was a mutual agreement, not necessarily a firing or a quit. I think they just parted ways.
I think that's how it was sold, is that they both mutually agreed that it was time for him to go.
Right. Now, I'm more or less disappointed. I really thought when I started hearing rumors that Mike Zimmer could be out at Minnesota, I thought Mike Zimmer would have the best shot at being the Bengals' next head coach. But now you don't think so? You wouldn't think Mike Zimmer would be a coach that would you not want him as a coach for the Bengals?
No, I'd like him as a coach for the Bengals. I think he's done quite well in Minnesota. I just don't think that making a lateral move to come here, I just don't think that'd be in the
Well, I know. I guess originally last week there was just rumors that he wasn't getting along with ownership. So I know I'm not saying he was going to leave there to come to the Bengals. I was saying if Minnesota let him go, I just would have thought that would be it. Now the rumors today are that he's interviewed Hugh Jackson to come up there and be offensive coordinator, which I find interesting. I mean, they were together.
That could work out. I honestly think that some people just aren't. I mean, I know we've had this conversation beforehand, and some folks just aren't really cut out to be head coaches. And I thought when Hugh Jackson was an OC, I thought it was okay. I didn't think he was the best, but that might just be, what he's best suited for.
Right. And I think I want them to hire him so that they don't hire him as the Bengals head coach.
Oh yes, yeah.
I know the Bengals have. And again, when I say the Bengals, Mike Brown has not called me, and I know everything, and I've not heard what Mike Brown says. It's just been reports that Hugh Jackson is on the list.
He was interviewed today, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. See, I missed that I just knew he was one to be interviewed. I didn't know that it had actually taken place. So I don't know.
Him and I think Vance Joseph, former Broncos head coach. He's on the list to get interviewed by the Bengals. And then also, it was actually kind of funny. There was somebody else that I just saw earlier that's supposed to be getting interviewed by the Bengals. And I cannot remember off the top of my head who else was supposed to get interviewed by him. Hold on. Oh, the Chiefs offensive coordinator is supposed to be interviewed by the Bengals for the head coaching job, which is actually pretty interesting. I was kind of surprised that they would bring him in. Vance, I can kind of understand because I believe he has a connection to Marvin Lewis, but I was surprised that they were open enough to try and cast a wide enough net to pick up somebody from the Chiefs, which would be nice.
Right. I mean, the issue with that, unfortunately, if they go all the way to the Super Bowl, that puts you a month behind, and then that's the problem with teams like right now. If you wait on that kind of a guy, usually they're not going to commit to anything, until, after the Super Bowl. And by that time, other people could be gone. And obviously, we just knew from last year, you had the Indianapolis Colts thought they had a guy and then didn't.
Yeah, I think that was a slightly different situation.
Slightly different, but things change. My point is, until you actually have him as your head coach, if he's coaching a team in the Super Bowl, you're not going to have him. That's all.
That's fair.
Bieniemy, Eric Tony Sakata is bringing his name up. I've seen his name a few times for a couple jobs.
Yeah, that's the Chiefs OC that's going to get interviewed.
Right. And that's the point, though. He has been his name's come up a couple of places. Caldwell, I think I've heard his name, not with the Bengals, but I think the Browns were either interviewing him or considering interviewing him, I guess, since in Ohio right now, our three major football teams do not have a head coach. So, and I know in town and on Twitter, a lot of people mentioning, hey, Urban Meyer could now have his choice of either professional football team. I think if Urban Meyer wanted to be interviewed by either, I think he could get the job. And I think both would be less pressure than coaching the Buckeyes. I just find that interesting that all three of our major football teams in Ohio do not have a head coach right now. Other than the Buckeyes do, obviously. I mean, they promoted within, but I find that kind of funny. I don't think Urban's going to coach anywhere in the next few years. But
no, I think he needs to just, he
has left and come back before.
Yeah, I know. I think he'll probably, if anything, he should just take a couple of years. What, he's supposed to get a teaching job there at O State?
He's going to be a pretty high-paid teacher.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say take a couple of years off, and then if the game calls you back, the game calls you back.
Right.
Because what was it, shortly after Tressel got dismissed, didn't he go to – he was with the Colts, I thought, for maybe like a half a season or something like that. And then he just immediately washed out of the NFL. So it just give it some time.
Right. And again, it's back to these head coaches. You hear all the same names. Every coach that got fired is now interviewing everywhere else, unless I missed it, except I have not heard Marvin Lewis's name anywhere. Is that because I didn't pay enough attention, or is he not looking to be a head coach?
I don't think he's looking to be a head coach. I think the front office is calling his name, and I'm pretty sure that Cincinnati, in their mutual agreement, there was probably a wink, as to where he will wind up. Somewhere in the Cincinnati's front office. It might be GM, might be personnel management, kind of like what Tom Coughlin wound up being for Jacksonville. I can see the same type of position for Marvin Lewis.
Right. I mean, which I was amazed that didn't happen with Cincinnati, that they didn't just move him somewhere if it was going to be mutual. That they didn't put him in the front office job or something like that, because. Again, been around the Bengals a long time. He's stuck around a long time. I think he had the Browns' confidence. I mean, I know the fans didn't necessarily give him confidence, but, I think the Browns were confident that he was doing as good as he could. I don't know. Again, in this area, obviously it's a big deal. Going into this week, I didn't want to skip. Do we have any major injury? What injuries are we talking about going into the playoffs? And obviously that would also affect some of your drafts if you're going to be in a playoff fantasy league. Do we have any major injuries that of? And when I mean major, I mean questionable people. Obviously if they're major and they're out, that's a little harder. I think I've heard, like Baldwin. Is he going to be playing? Is he?
As far as I know, limited participation.
I mean, he has been hurt all season.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty much his practice participation has pretty much been the same as it has been for the last couple of weeks since he's been playing. So, yeah, I expect him to play, yeah.
And Marvin Gordon?
Gordon, he said he expects to play as well.
Okay, so they're both expected to be back. Anybody else that I mean, anything? I mean, I guess I'm talking fantasy people.
Big name players. I don't think there are any big name players that are expected to sit as of this week. Now, T.Y. Hilton missed practice today, but he's missed Wednesday practice for the last. It's been almost a solid month, I think, that Hilton's been missing Wednesday practices. So I'd assume that that's going to continue. It's more of a maintenance thing, and he's been playing banged up anyways. So I think it's more of a maintenance thing for Ty. So I don't think there's any real danger of any of the bigger names missing this week as of Wednesday.
Right. All right, then let's move on. I'm kind of curious about this Pittsburgh Steelers thing. And let's go all the way to the game at the end and them watching the Ravens play and all that. Obviously, I was watching the game because the Bengals, I had mixed emotions. I'm not sure who I wanted to represent our division because I'm one of those weird fans. We've had that conversation. One of those weird fans that I root for my division. I want someone out of this division to win the Super Bowl. Do you think the Ravens have a better shot at winning the Super Bowl? Obviously they do now, but when that was going on, do you think the Ravens have as good or better chance than Pittsburgh?
I think they have a better chance than Pittsburgh, to be honest with you.
So you think we're putting our best team out there?
Oh, not the best team, but I think they have
meaning the best team from our division, meaning the Ravens was a better – obviously the Ravens have been winning more. I mean, their line was moving up, and the Pittsburgh obviously was moving down. They were struggling. They, I'm going to say, lost 3 in a row?
And then all this drama with Antonio Brown that's been coming out the past couple of days, it just looks like that team is on something, man. Yeah, so there's just too much drama. So I think that we probably got our best representative going into the playoffs.
If they had won, would we have this drama? If they'd won and Brown was playing this week, would the drama have gone away, or do you believe what you've heard? Do you believe what you've heard? I've heard a lot of rumors, I guess. I don't know. I mean, is he that mad that he's not going to play? Is he going to?
It sounds like it. I mean, it really does. And I don't know. I mean, there's too much that we don't know at this point as to who's the culprit. I mean, and I don't really want to try and speculate or anything like that. But it just sounds like, if anything, if they would have won, I don't think we would have heard anything about this. Maybe over the off season, after everything's all said and done, they get knocked out of the playoffs, or hell, even if they win the Super Bowl, maybe a story here or there might have leaked. But because they're out of the playoffs, that's when everything comes to light.
Right.
And I think that's the reason why.
And I think Juju was the one that would have wanted that to work out better for them. I mean, obviously a lot of people put it on him because of the fumble there at the end. But hey, they struggled for 3 or 4 games in a row. You can't put it on one play.
Right. It was
my opinion.
And then also Juju was the one he got voted as the team's MVP, and not Antonio Brown nor Ben Roethlisberger. So it was just a lot of things going on in Pittsburgh, man.
I know, but Juju doesn't do that dance like,
I mean, Juju's got all the best end zone celebrations. So I think he's got to be beat in terms of end zone celebrations.
I don't know. I was rooting for the Bengals to win, which obviously that would have not made. I mean, obviously nothing would have changed. The Bengals would have won. It wouldn't have mattered necessarily what the Ravens did. But
right.
Both were good games. Were both fun to watch.
Absolutely.
The Browns, you got to give it to the Browns. They really did put on a great second half. Once they made their change, they did a lot. Lou is saying the Ravens defense puts them ahead of everyone, and I agree in that division. But is that the best defense going in the playoffs? Are they better than the Bears, or is the Bears defense better than the Ravens?
I would say in the AFC conference, I do wholeheartedly believe that the Ravens have the best defense.
And with all this talk of the last few years and all the numbers going up, with all the scoring going up, would we be fine with a Bears-Ravens Super Bowl and a 14-10 game?
That's pretty much, I think, what you're going to wind up signing up for at that point, because I'm not 100% convinced that I was hoping for a little bit more of a second-year leap for Trubisky. I don't think he's there yet. I think he still makes a lot of mistakes once he senses pressure, but his athleticism is what kind of propels him forward. So I was hoping for a bit more, but again, it's just his first year with Nagy. I think the offense has been really fun to watch at times. Other times it's been dreadful. But I think next year they can come back and kind of do the same thing. And
don't you think, to me, that's what hurts Kansas City and the Chargers. Chargers have a better defense than Kansas City, but still, they're not up with the Bears or the Ravens. So, I think if Kansas City, again, I wouldn't put my money on Kansas City because of that reason. They might score 50, but the problem is they also might give up 51.
I think that's part of the problem. I think it's because it's almost the opposite of what you have with the Bears. The Bears have a weaker offense, but their defense plays lights out. And then with the Chiefs, it's the Chiefs, they can put up 50, but like you just said, I mean, their defense will give up the same amount. So it's almost like if you could just put those two teams together, just give me the Bears offense or the Bears defense and the Chiefs offense.
And in a one-game win and go home. See, this is my problem, though, with the Ravens. In a one-game winner-take-all type situation, can a good defensive coordinator, and I'm going to say, I mean, obviously not with a terrible defense, but with just an okay defense, can you just stop Lamar Jackson and win that game?
Yes.
Meaning you just say, I'm going to put 2 guys on him, meaning these 2 guys are not going to move. He's going to have to either, he's going to have to beat us some other way. That's my problem with the Ravens. Their offense is, I get it. They've been winning, but they're not winning with a lot of points, and it has been Lamar Jackson's running. And again, good coordinators in one game where they go, if we don't win, it doesn't matter. So we're going to make him do this. Back to the Patriots. The Patriots seem to sometimes make that happen. People make fun that the Patriots have done well, obviously, in the playoffs for a lot of years and won some Super Bowls. Their defense does always seem to pick it up in the playoffs also. I mean, I realize they got different coordinators now and things like that, but, it's pretty pretty exciting to me to see what happens with the Ravens. That's my problem with picking the Ravens. I think a good defensive coordinator, and then even if you get them down to them playing the Bears versus him, they have speed on defense. They have a lot of things. I mean, again, can you stop one player like that?
No, I think you can, and I think that's where that's where the Ravens could meet their match, is once they find somebody that understands how to, I guess, expose Lamar Jackson's inefficiencies as a passer.
Well, I think more understand. The key is you have to have a couple players to make it happen. You obviously have to go man to man. You have to have the safeties and the cornerbacks that can match up, because you got to keep your linebackers. You got to say, boys, you are to just stay here. Period. I mean.
Yeah, and that's what the type of defense that New England runs. I think a man-to-man defense on. I think they run it at the highest rate in the league. So I think if Baltimore does wind up playing the Patriots at some point, that's going to be one of his toughest tests as a passer, because he's going to have to put passes in tight windows with receivers that really don't gain a lot of separation. John Brown is not a high separation wide receiver. He's more of a contested catch, deep ball receiver. Michael Crabtree, possession receiver, but still doesn't get a ton of separation. Same with Willie Snead. So it's one of those games where, I mean, their offensive coordinator is really going to have to work around, and especially if their linebackers are actually able to be patient and put a spy on Lamar Jackson to stop him from rushing as well, or at least limit him.
Lou said that in the thing too. I'm not sure one spy is enough. He beats one player all the time. I've seen teams have a spy on him, and he runs right past that spy. I mean,
he has to pull, he can pull. I mean, Lamar Jackson can pull both a linebacker and a safety just by doing his zone reads. I've watched it on in multiple games. That's how good he is at being able to spot how defenses are reacting. When he tucks that ball into the running back's stomach and he reads the defense, and he can watch the safety and linebacker pull away, he knows that he can just keep it. I mean, it's easy for him. But
and
I think
your spy or spies have to be committed.
Yes.
They can't. You can't look at the shoulder. You can't look at the eye. I've always said you got to look at the belly button. That's the only part that if you're going to spy, that belly button always follows the feet. Everything else is a little tough. So, so it's going to be hard. Yeah. Dominic in the chat room, Chargers played Ravens and lost in week 16 without Marvin Gordon. How does Gordon make a change in that game? I agree that game to me is hard to judge because it was week 16. I'm not saying the Chargers didn't have anything to play for, but they didn't play Gordon because of that. Meaning, I don't know. The Ravens had a lot more to play for in that game, so I don't weigh that win too much. Meaning, if they meet in the Super Bowl, I think it's a different game. But I mean, the Ravens defense have the ability to stop the Chargers offense I think so.
Yeah, I think so. But I think in the case of Gordon, because you don't have to change your personnel packages, because Gordon is both an effective runner and a catcher out of the backfield, it's easier for you to actually run your normal offense, where when him not being there, I'm not saying that they were tipping their hand by either switching out between, who was it? It was Justin Jackson and Austin Eckler. So switching out and trying to find either player that can perform the job of Melvin Gordon, I think it's easier for you to run the same offense and same type of personnel, because I believe for their particular team, they're running 11 personnel more often than not when Melvin Gordon is in. Now, when he's not in there, that actually switches to, if it's not 12 personnel, I think they can actually run 12 personnel if Melvin Gordon isn't in. So it just kind of changes the dynamic of the entire offense.
Right. All right. I mean, again, it's going to be fun. I think it's set up to be a fun playoff the next 4 weeks, or not 4 weeks in a row, but you know what I'm saying? The next, and like I said, and that's why the fantasy at this point, I enjoyed the last 7 years of playing fantasy has made my Sunday football thing change a little bit on how I'm watching games and what I'm watching. So without playing any fantasy football, playoff leagues, I kind of always have looked forward the last few years to these 4 weeks to just sit down, crack a few brews, and just watch games and root for good games. Entertain me. Let me just watch football for a weekend. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a gambling degenerate, so I'll probably have some money down on one of the games. I'll have some DFS lineups here and there, but yeah, I think it's one of those I mean, this weekend and the next few weekends leading up to the Super Bowl, that's where a lot of us can sit back and actually watch these games because we can't really take too much from them in terms of like, we can't put too much fantasy stock in the games.
Right.
So we just watch.
Well, again, we're going to get we have to watch the clock. I hate that. They're putting pressure on me. Thanks, Lou. And Lou's probably did it on purpose. I said he did it on purpose because I suck at, staying within any parameters. I'm not a parameter guy here, Chris.
Can't box you in. We can't box you in.
Tony Cicada is saying he loves fantasy playoff leagues. You have to pick players and winners. I agree. We talked about that at the beginning of the show. The strategy is much different than regular fantasy. And if anything, I think that's why I've never ran into home leagues that do these. And I think that's because in most home leagues, I don't know. I don't think the average home league player, you know what I mean by the average guy, is interested in studying enough to pick a playoff team. Every playoff league I've seen has been, people in the industry, has been, people that are a little more, tied in, and they're given more to fantasy than the average home guy, because there is more involved.
Leagues that I'm in right now are either I'm in the Scott Fish one, so obviously that's with a lot of folks that are plugged in, and then the other one that I'm in is in one of my dynasty leagues where it's just filled with folks that are either analysts or very plugged into the industry as well. So it's a lot of folks that pay attention to this stuff 24/7.
I brought it up in my one home league last year and it went nowhere. And that was, if anything, maybe it'd been a fun thing to do to set your draft for next year. Maybe, hey guys, we have there's no money, but at the same time, if you win the playoff, championship, you get to pick where you pick. And if you come in last, you pick, meaning there's some incentive and there's some cheering going on. But again, my home league just went, nah, they just don't grasp. How do you even play it?
It's after 16, 15 weeks of having to set lineups and waiver wires and all that.
I'm not sure I'm not ready to be done. That's my point.
I'm not ready to be done.
Well, I'm not either, but at the same time, it's just a different way to watch football for a few weeks. And I know you say you're not done. Meaning if we tied you down somehow to where you couldn't play fantasy for the next 3 or 4 weeks, you would still enjoy it and maybe more. That's my point. You don't know.
Yeah.
That's all. Well, out there in the chat room, Lenny Melnick, fantasysports.com. Lou Landers has posted again the playoff challenge. So guys, get in there and participate. And I'm gonna, unfortunately, I say I'm not, but it's hard to stay out. I already did my first baseball draft. I'm already committed to a $20 league in baseball. I forget how many damn rounds we drafted forever. It's like, holy Lord. I mean, we got down to where I was drafting bat boys. I'm like, how many bat boys can I start? I mean, it's like, Jesus, give me a, and me, I enjoy and love baseball. Baseball fantasy is still a little new to me. This will be my 3rd or 4th year. And obviously the last few I've gotten into a little more because of Lenny Melnick and the guys out there. But man, it's just, and I'm not saying if I was drafting 30 football players that I would know all of them, but I do know more football players than baseball. And when you're drafting, 38 rounds, 58 rounds, I don't even know how many it was. It just went on forever. So
that's too much for me. I can't do it.
I agree. We got quick 5 minutes. We always do our main topic here. But I didn't discuss this with you ahead of time because I just want a quick thing. And that's just give me, I want one early target and one early not on my team next year.
One early target.
No first rounders.
No first rounders.
Yeah. Give me an early target and an early won't be on my team.
No first rounders, early target for me. I think it's still going to be Tyler. It's going to be Tyler Lockett. That's going to be one of my targets.
Okay. What round area are you think he's going to go?
I think after this season, I could see him coming up to, 5th round.
All right. I would accept him. I mean, to be honest, he's one of those I should have paid attention to. He might have been one of those kind of keeper guys I could have got a hold of, maybe. I
still think after this season, everybody's going to look at the fact that they want to run the ball first, run the ball a lot, and then run the ball on 3rd and 4th down if they could. So, but I think Tyler Lockett is still being able to shine out of all of them. Doug Baldwin will come back healthy, but I think everybody can see what Tyler Lockett can do. And I think even if he is still coming off that injury, he stays healthy during the offseason, continues to produce. He could be one of my main targets for
now, the first one that came to mind when I wrote this down, and maybe I'm dreaming. Do you think I could get Nick Chubb in the third or late second?
No, he'll be one of those. At the very least, I could see him.
I don't. You really? I don't think he's going in the first, though, right?
I mean, I would take
Nick Chubb in the first.
No,
but he is one of those to me that late second. If I start with a wide receiver early on, that I would love to get a Nick Chubb late second, early third. That was kind of my first thing. You know, an early target. He's somebody I think in my mind I'm targeting right now in my head. So
I think Chubb's going in the early, like mid-second. I could see him going in like
that's what I'm saying. So I mean, that's the thing. I'm targeting him. He's my early target right now. In my head, I think they're going to throw the ball. And again, obviously that could change. Lewis saying a 16 or 20, so that'd be a mid to late round second. I would consider Chubb then because the right offensive coordinator. I think they're going to keep throwing him the ball. He can catch the ball. So you know what? If I could draft in the top 2 or 3, let's say, and I could get or maybe even down to 4, and you can get a Barkley or a Zeke or one of those at 3, and then wait all the way in the end of the end of the second, pick up a Chubb. I would take a Chubb and Zeke Elliott to start my draft.
Well, that'd be pretty nice. That'd be very nice start to your league. Yeah.
So, do you think Chubb goes before Mixon?
No.
So you think Mixon's going to go later? That's my point. Who's going to go first, Mixon or Chubb?
I still think Mixon will go earlier. Me personally,
but I still don't think he's going in the first. I still don't think he's a first round running back yet. Do you think?
No, I don't think either of them are going in the first.
All right. So again, let's say I don't know where. Well, if you drafted, same thing. Is there a shot you could get him if you're drafting first? Is there a chance you could get them at the turn of the third or the second and the first, or the second and the third? You know what I'm saying? Meaning, could you get Mixon and Chubb at the last pick of the second and the first round of the third?
No, I don't think so. I think they'd both be gone. I think both of them would be gone by then.
Chubb before Mixon. That's what they're saying in the chat room. I think that's the way I would draft them right now. But I think they're going to go beside each other. I think they're going to go pretty close. So a quick, well, like I said, we're down to just a couple minutes. A quick, early, not on my team.
Not on my team?
Yeah. Who's an early guy you're targeting to make sure will not be on my team next year?
Derrick Henry will not be on my team. I don't care how many yards he finished.
The fact that I had the exact same name written down. I think in home leagues, he's going early. You know, I agree. And I also wrote AJ Green. I don't think right now AJ Green is on a list that I want him on my team. He struggled with staying healthy the last few years. The team's going to change. I don't know.
His cost might make it untenable. Like if he holds the same draft cost as he did this year, so which was like a mid-second.
And I didn't want to put injuries into it either, meaning I don't think even with injuries that I don't like that thing. I don't think I want him on my team anyway right now. I just he's one of those top guys right now. He is not on my team early list. So
we'll have to see with the new head coach and all those things. We'll see how the offense shakes out. But if I were to draft today, I don't think that I would draft AJ Green for the same price that I drafted him in 2018.
Right. So we'll see. We'll get obviously into those things deeper. I just thought, to me, I wanted something quick off your head. And yes, back to we think in home leagues, what did you show me last? And obviously, Derrick Henry did show a lot at the end, and I think that's what a lot of people saw. And I do agree. He won't be on my team either. I shouldn't say that. I'd have to get a good value on him. He'd have to, really fall. And me and you know that. We'll take anybody at the right
price.
Give me AJ Green in the fourth round. He's on my team. So, but you know what I'm saying. We're not going to chase them. We're not going to, but. All right, Chris, where can people find your work? Do you have anything that you wanted to bring up? We got like 2 minutes. Anything you wanted to bring up that we did not discuss?
No, this is the first week where I have not had to get up on Monday and start doing any writing. I am off. I'm done writing for the fantasy football season, which is great. So you will not find my work anywhere on the
internet. All right. Well, you have when will that start again?
Probably not until March-ish.
Okay.
I'll shut it down for the next couple of months. I need to start pulling down some more data, and then I'll have some stuff up for Fantrax probably in the early spring when I start. I'll be doing a lot of analysis for best ball leagues. So when the lobbies start opening for best ball leagues for Fantrax, I'll be doing most of that research for them there. And then I'll be doing some more weather related articles and other research articles for 444.
All right. You're going to make me rap quick. I won't get to say anything.
So go. Right. And then find me on Twitter at Chris Allen.
I just want to say, we'll be here all year. We've done this already. People don't even know me and you started. We're 2 weeks from our anniversary. We're over 46 shows, 48 shows. We've only missed a few. And we got a 1 year anniversary. Me and you, we weren't even sure we were going to make it a month, let alone we did this for a whole year. We will be here at Lenny Melnick, afantasysports.com, as long as Andrea and Lenny keep having us. And you know what? We're getting more listeners. And, I do get emails and a DM here and there where people, want, just to say hi. But a Fantasy Fan Sportscast will still be here Wednesday nights, 10 o'clock, Lenny Melnick, afantasysports.com. Chris, thanks for joining me tonight. Stay tuned, 11 o'clock, a new show with Lou and Andrea here on the network. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, Lenny talking baseball. Everybody in the chat room, thanks for coming out. Tony, Andrea, Lou, Cha-Cha was earlier, Malpal, Jordan Allen. Appreciate everybody. Brian, enjoyed your show before ours. Catch you all next week. Say goodnight, guys.
This has been Just a Fantasy Fan Podcast. And to keep your fantasies going, follow us at justafantasyfan.com. Say good night. Good night.